YouTube, how's everyone doing? I'm here to do a quick video on the disadvantages and the advantages of being a social worker. I thought this would be quite handy for people that are now thinking of becoming social workers. As you know, my channel is basically about social work and what to expect when you start working in the social work field. So it's very much for people that are now graduating in a degree in social work or community welfare or similar types of careers. So today I'm just going to be talking about what I think the advantages and disadvantages are of being a social worker. Like every other profession, there are some good sides and some bad sides. So this is just going to be from my opinion and my research and my experience so far as a social worker. So first of all, one of the advantages of being a social worker, I think, is the fulfillment you get from it. You know, obviously being a social worker mainly involves helping people. So if you're helping someone and you're able to see an outcome or a change in that person, I think it can be really fulfilling and empowering to you as the worker. You're able to feel like, oh my God, so all my hard work hasn't gone to waste. This person has actually been able to achieve this particular goal that we set in the beginning when I met this particular client or whatever. Excuse me if I keep looking down because I've got a list of things to talk about. Usually it's an opportunity to work with nice people. I think social, like welfare, obviously involves helping people. So it takes some kind of person to be able to be willing to, you know, be involved in such a job. And you usually don't get paid that much as well. So I think, yeah, it's a good opportunity to meet like people that think just like you and wanting to make a change in disadvantaged people's lives and things like that. So I think, yeah, so far, like in my job so far, I've met some quite amazing people, and I think, yeah, it's a great opportunity. If you become a social worker, the chances of you meeting such people is quite high because most people have come into the job with the same aspirations as you have. I think another thing that I think is an advantage of being a social worker is being able to work in a multidisciplinary team where you have all these other professionals like doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, all sorts of professionals that you get to work with. So besides your own professional development, like you getting to know what these people are about and how they're involved in your client's life or whatever, besides you learning those stuff, I think another thing is you're able to help the client in a better way because you're getting an opinion from all different kinds of professionals. So I think the opportunity to work in a multidisciplinary team is also an advantage of being a social worker. I think another advantage that I think you have as a social worker is not having to sit at a desk all day. I think social work tends to involve like moving around and taking a client here and there or doing home visits, or depending on where you're working, of course, but most of the time you're not stuck to a desk in front of a computer. Like you have the choice to be able to go out and do things with your clients, and I think that's always a plus, you know. Well, for me especially, I don't think I would like to sit at my desk 8 hours. Sometimes I have to, depending on the demands for the day. Sometimes I have so much notes and paperwork to complete, so then I'll have to sit in front of my desk for the rest of the day or whatever. But then I think that generally a good percentage of my time is spent with the clients outside my office. So I think that's always a plus for a social worker. So I think those are a few advantages that I've mentioned. So coming down to disadvantages, I think it can be quite stressful to be a social worker. Sometimes you can only do so much and it can be quite frustrating to you. Like, you know, there's laws, there's policies, and there's all these things you have to go by. And sometimes because of waiting lists and you know, minimal resources and things like that, you're not able to provide, you know, what you hope to provide for your clients. So sometimes that can be like frustrating and stressful and things like that. So obviously that's why we have supervision, and that's why you would also have to have a way of debriefing at the end of your shift every day in order for you to not get burnt out, you know. So I think that, yeah, that's a disadvantage. For me right now, I think the most stressful thing that's happening with me right now is I work in out of home care, and most of my clients are leaving care soon, and I have to find them accommodation, and accommodation over here for homeless people is like one of the biggest issues at the moment. It's just so hard to find it, and you know, it can be quite frustrating when you feel like, so if they leave my program, where are they going to go if by the time they're ready to go I haven't found them accommodation? But you know, obviously there's people that I work with, and I shouldn't be taking all this on me, but you know, it's still my responsibility at the end of the day. So you know, that's what I mean when I talk about how stressful and frustrating it can be. I think obviously being a social worker, as I mentioned before, you working in a multidisciplinary team is an advantage. At the same time, a lot of social workers tend to work with a team, and it can be quite hard working with a team because obviously you're working with all different people with all different personalities, and you know, sometimes it can be hard to make decisions, and sometimes it can be, you know, some people are just, you know, different and they might not be compatible to you, and you know, working with them can be a challenge. So I think that could be both an advantage and a disadvantage, as obviously you can learn from them, but at the same time it can be hard to relate to them or be on the same page with them and things like that. So that's another disadvantage. I think it can be a very emotional job as well. Being a social worker, you do form relationships with your clients. Depending, some people have short-term clients, some people have long-term clients. Especially for people that have long-term clients, you form relationships with them, and you know, it can be quite like emotional when they're going through all these stresses and you know, like issues and things like that. You know, you just can't help but feel sorry for them and things like that. You know, obviously there are professional boundaries that we all have to go by, and try and avoid like connecting to a client too much on a personal level. But sometimes, you know, you just can't help it, especially if you're working with someone for such a long time. So yeah, that's another disadvantage of being a social worker. I think another disadvantage is all the full-on stories that you hear on a daily basis. The kind of lives people have had to live sometimes can be unbelievable, and just having to hear all these stories about these people on a daily basis it can get to you, you know. You just, yeah, it can. And I guess that relates back to the emotional stuff, you know. It can be quite hard to take in and all that, but I think obviously that's why we have debriefing, supervision and all those things. But you know, those things can only do so much. Sometimes it still gets to you. So I think I gave like 5 advantages and about 4 or 5 disadvantages as well. Hopefully I haven't put you off becoming a social worker. Thanks so much for watching. Please rate, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks. Bye.